Hey, good afternoon, Graham. How are you doing?
Good. How you doing, Bobby?
It's good. It's always a fun day in Bitcoin. A lot to talk about this week.
Yeah, man. The last week or so has been absolutely wild for a lot of reasons. So yes, there's certainly a lot of things to cover today.
Yeah. And you're about to head out to the MicroStrategy event this week, aren't you?
That is correct. I fly out tonight, and we will. Myself and Roman, our sales leader, will both be there for both days of the Bitcoin focus part of the MicroStrategy event. So yeah, we're excited to be there. Hit us up if you're there. And yeah, I think it was a great event last year, so we're really looking forward to it this year.
Wonderful. Yeah, if you guys are there, say hey to Graham. But
Yeah.
I'll get my screen shared. We'll dive into some of these topics. We've got some cool stuff this week. We're gonna kick it off with a little bit more of a technical one. So, Graham, maybe shed some light on here. Oh, I shared the wrong screen. Thank you guys for being patient here. There we go. All right. So testnet, it's been a little dicey this week. What's I heard Jameson Lopp kind of shared a lot of this, but what's been going on with testnet?
Yeah, I mean, like there's been folks that have been abusing testnet, and that they're have found a way of producing blocks at an incredible rate. What is this? I can't remember the exact rate, but it's basically been like I think there's been like 3 years worth of blocks created in the last like week. Um, which is basically just like it's very problematic for people that are trying to use testnet for actually development and testing, because like in like what Leo is mentioning right here is that your node will never get synced to the chain. If you have like a lightning node, it'll never get synced to the chain because the chain tip is moving so fast that it will actually never get there. And so things like LND have a lot of functionality that require you to be synced to the chain. So then it's like your node basically becomes unusable. So I guess like maybe why I honestly I don't totally understand why this is happening. I think that there's been a lot of calls that we need to have this is testnet 3, so this is like the third testnet that has been created in Bitcoin's history, and people are saying that we need a testnet 4. There's some things that we can do inside of testnet to prevent this kind of abuse from happening. I can't remember if this what I feel like there's a reason for why people are doing this that I don't even know if it's exactly clear, and I think that it's probably a little silly at the end of the day. But it's basically made testnet a very hard place to actually do any kind of development on. I will say, us at Voltage launched Mutiny Net support just last week or the week before, and
Yeah.
so it was actually perfect timing for us to release that unintentionally, because MutinyNet is a much more stable place to do development and testing on. So it's a great alternative where, if you testnet was honestly kind of a hard place to do Lightning development already, but now it's almost unusable. So this
Mm.
is a great alternative to those that are looking to do kind of development and testing on Bitcoin.
Yeah. And this is free on the Essentials plan, right? Like that's included for anyone. Do you have any details on that? Maybe if someone's watching and they're just like, "Oh Lord, I need this." Like, can you tell a little more to the
Yeah,
users?
yeah, definitely. I mean, yes, this is free to use. You get like a certain amount of like free MutinyNet nodes depending on your plan, but ultimately everyone can just sign up, start using it for free, and get it across the line. So it's very quick and easy to get started, and again, it gives you a much more reliable test experience than what testnet has been in the past.
This is great. So yeah, give that a shot if you have not, guys. It'll be interesting to see what unfolds the next couple of weeks. What I had up next here, I know we've covered this the last couple of weeks, touching on like how BIPs are going to be just managed and reviewed, but it looks like after some discussion, it's been announced.
Yes, yeah, this was. I think that we touched on it last week a little bit of just like we think that there are some reviewers assigned, but yes, now it's kind of like official that we have had a group of folks be assigned as kind of official like BIP reviewers, which is great. I think that this list of folks are a great mix of some different people, some different skill sets, and so yeah, this is great to see. And now that I saw Rose Beef tweet earlier in the week that there was like I don't know 131 open BIP PRs to review, and now it's down to like 90 or something. So they've already wiped out like 40 PRs that needed kind of like looked at.
Wow.
Maybe typo fixes, maybe there's some smaller stuff, but they've definitely kind of gotten right to work, which is awesome to see too.
Yeah, and like from a developer's perspective, I'm not a developer, but if I had a PR submitted and it had been sitting there for 3 or 4 months, that'd probably be frustrating. Where now people are reviewing them, it almost does inspire more activity around and on Bitcoin. Isn't that like a fair assumption now that there's like a process in place?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that I think that it just shows that like the community is active. We're looking at stuff like we're kind of, as a community, we are still kind of engaged in working through things. So yeah, I think that it's a kind of a great signal that, hey, we're not going anywhere. The whole bit process hasn't like completely stalled out. So yeah, I think that it definitely bodes for a really good inclination that, things are still moving.
Yeah. Another big news this week, I mean, we'll kind of go in order here, but the founders of Samurai, they've been obviously, they made some comments towards like Russian oligarchs, like, hey, you're welcome to use our product. I don't think that necessarily made, certain lawmakers happy. But what's your take on, some of this? We got a few items to cover in regards to this, but maybe just starting here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge topic in general, and we've had a lot of customers kind of reach out, and we've talked with a lot of people kind of about what's happening around there. So for this one specifically, yeah, the two founders of Samurai got arrested. One was US based, one was in like Portugal, I believe, and the reason for, I think that they're being charged on money laundering, money laundering and unlicensed money transmitting offenses. So I think there's two sides of it. Like, I think that this is obviously like very bad to see because, we don't want, people like this to be prosecuted for things that we don't believe are, they never had control of funds, any of those things. Like, I think that there's definitely some stuff that we are very eagerly watching that we don't like to see happen. I think the flip side of this is it's a little challenging to 100% defend the case, in my opinion, because they have, and they cite several things inside of this summary of the indictment that mentions that they were specifically kind of calling out that they are actively servicing black market kind of communities. They're welcoming, people that are very obviously on like sanctions lists and things like that. So, if you're kind of publicly stating those are the kinds of people you're going after, the FBI or any kind of government official isn't just going to, look away from that. They're definitely going to have to do something about it. So this is one of the many topics that we'll cover that is, really rough to see as far as, a mixer and like how that functions and that coming under attack. But then there's also the flip side of, there's some public comments made that don't really bode well for how they were operating the business.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of led to some other things like Phoenix Wallet, which has been one of the favorites among many Bitcoiners and what a lot of Bitcoiners use to introduce friends how to easily use Bitcoin and Lightning. But they're removing themselves from the U.S. app stores, whether they're being proactive or, they've been asked by lawmakers. This is happening, and that's tough, for individuals. But I don't know if you have any additional context here maybe I missed.
Yeah, no, I mean, from what I've seen and their comments and everything, it seems like Phoenix is withdrawing from the US from the app stores for what seems to just be either like there's never been that great of clarity on, what is what. But I think I think this happened the day after the Samurai indictment got released. And I think that they saw this as, that definitely doesn't help the case for non-custodial kind of services inside of the U.S. and whatnot. And so I think that they took this as an abundance of caution to withdraw from the U.S., especially because this, Phoenix is made by the Async company. They're a French-based company. I don't know if that has anything to do with that. But I think that this is also, I think that there's a lot of people that felt like this was a little early because there hasn't been any kind of clear ruling or like rule setting or anything around, what can you do and what can't you do. There's been a few things that have, been bad to see, over the last week, but there has not been a clear, ruling or anything. So I think there's a lot of people that also felt that this was a little bit premature, but every company, every person has to kind of make their own decision in regards to that. So I think that's ultimately what they did, which is sad to see. I mean, Phoenix was one of the better kind of self-custodial wallets. So sad to see, but I'm hopeful that as these things progress, like these cases and these rulings and everything progress, that we will ultimately get more clarity out of the situation. In which case, assuming the clarity is good clarity, they would re-enter at that time.
Yeah, that would be good. Well, continuing along here, I don't know if this is like a FUD week or if it's a good week. I mean, this isn't necessarily FUD, but Russia wants to ban the circulation of Bitcoin. I know it's the then they fight you stage. It sounds like is just accelerated quite a bit, but yeah, Russia, who and correct me if I'm wrong, but a year and a half ago or so, they were removed from the SWIFT system and they started using a different currency. And now, whether they're embracing Bitcoin in a geopolitical way, they're basically telling citizens no.
Yeah. And this is I don't know what to think about this, because this feels like very much like China banning mining, like back when they did it, and then they re-enabled it later, all those kinds of things. When these kinds of like governments are just like, they're not like trying to, like in the US, we have like this kind of fight on what is what, how do things like operate, and what do you need to do to operate in particular areas, all these things. These people like China and Russia are just like trying to outright ban it, which is like that. It just feels so silly to me, and it seems like, I understand, oh, you're threatened or whatever, but it just seems very silly. And I have a feeling that this is going to come back, like, in give it a few months time or something. And then Russia's going to re-enable, oh, now you can do Bitcoin and all of these things. So it just seems like just one of those kind of China banning Bitcoin mining type situations that is ultimately, not going to make a lot of sense. And I think ultimately, like you said, I think they've been kind of cut off from some systems in the past. And I think that this is, I imagine, from like a citizen's point of view. So, maybe the government is still using it behind the scenes. We'll never know that stuff. But I think ultimately this is a move that they feel that they have to make, maybe especially amongst like the war that they're going on, that they're undertaking. But I think this will be overturned eventually.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting and challenging because obviously, Wall Street is adopting it. Corporations are using it, while not many corporations are yet, they are. And Hong Kong launched their ETF yesterday, which, we didn't have in our show notes here, but we can briefly talk about that. They did actually do, I think, what was it, 123 million. There were some numbers, kind of games like some of the guys were talking about, where it looked like they only did 11 million, but they actually did about what they estimated, it sounds like. So broadly, while it's being adopted, I have a feeling this has to be just confusing for some decision makers who are like, do we use this technology? Do we not? And I think your point is very good, because there is a lot of this back and forth in China, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like, hey, we don't want to ban ourselves from this. We need to embrace it because this thing's here to stay and there's benefits we can receive from it. So I'm eager for the backtrack whenever that may be.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's one of the, like with this, it'll just be one of those things where you just got to see when it happens. But I think this just seems fairly silly,
Yeah. I love TFTC. Marty always brings some really good articles, but this has been talked about quite a bit more on mining pools being centralized. Something like, I think 47%, of pools are in, or at least 9 pools representing 47% of the hash rate. Consolidation, like a lot of people, joining a certain set of pools, and it makes it where it's not necessarily Bitcoin is at risk. These people could easily pick up and go to a different pool, whoever's managing their own miners. But, does this pose any risks? I know Stratum V2 is an open source solution people can work on to help solve for this. But from your perspective, what does this broadly mean just for Bitcoin over the next year or two?
Yeah, I think that, and this, I'll also plug the TFTC podcast Marty did with Matt Corallo, which I think was I listened to kind of get up to speed with the situation, which I think was very helpful. But I think that the other thing of it's not only there's a group of pools that own a large amount of the hash rate. It's also the fact that it is appearing so via these kinds of like on-chain analysis that a lot of these pools are just proxies for other pools. So like, if someone's pointing at F2 pool, they think that that's an independent pool, but really behind the scenes, F2 pool is just pointing at ant pool and they're just taking a cut out of it. And so ultimately what that means is there is a single pool, which is, I think it's likely looking to be ant pool, that a single pool would own over 50% of the hash rate, or very close to it. And at that point, that's like the 51% attack like situation where they can start censoring blocks, they can start censoring transactions, they can start doing more nefarious things, which is like that's the really scary part. I think that's the part where, like, to Matt's point again, I think he does a great job in really breaking it down, and that there's like that. I think when you look at Bitcoin, and we're all trying to build on top of like the system that is ultimately controlled by miners at the end of the day, I mean, not totally controlled. Like there's all these things that kind of go into it, but the miners have a significant part of like the network, and if those start getting centralized, or they start having the ability to censor and do all these things, then everything else on top like kind of doesn't matter. It's all a LARP at the end of the day on top of it. If this lowest level of miners and mining pools are all centralized, then it really takes away a lot of the benefits of Bitcoin, which is very, very sad to see. So with that, so Matt is, I guess Matt and others, there's a lot of people that are really pushing for people to for miners to, there's two things that need to happen. Pools need to, one, not be proxies to other pools, and then also support Stratum v2. And so why is Stratum v2 important? Is there's a couple of things. It's a more advanced protocol for contributing hash rate to a mining pool, both in a security standpoint, as well as the big thing is you can have the miner can construct their own block templates. With Stratum v1, only the pool can construct the block template, which gives them the ability to censor transactions and do all those things. In Stratum v2, the miner can produce their own block templates, which would then distribute that kind of the construction of blocks to money. It would be much more decentralized than what it would be in Stratum v1 world. So we need pools to support Stratum v2, and then we need miners to hop on board with Stratum v2. I believe that there's only one pool, which is Demand Pool, that supports Stratum v2 today. Brains supports Stratum v2, but they don't support the custom block template creation, which is one of the big advantages of Stratum v2. So we need people, we need new pools, or all the pools to support Stratum v2, and we need miners to go and then enable Stratum v2 in top of their miners. There's a couple different ways to do that, whether it's strictly on the firmware level or adding in some additional kind of services that you need to do to like your mining farms and stuff. It's really from what I've heard in that podcast with Matt, is that it's not that big of a lift. Like it would take a little bit of engineering work, but it's not so enormous that you like lose out on significant profits or anything like that. So ultimately, this is a pretty big problem because centralization in this lowest level of Bitcoin is very, very bad, and we need to really go in the way of decentralization in this lowest level. And how we do that is seemingly to be Stratum v2. There's a couple other ways of doing it, but that seems to be the most likely in kind of the current setup.
Yeah, is this like something that would potentially be fixed in the next 6 to 9 months, or is it like this might go on for another 3 years type deal? Do you have any insight on that?
It's all up to the miners and the pools. Like it's one, and that's something that again Matt brings up, is I'm kind of just like trying to quote Matt right now, but like that is one of the things that he brings up, is that it's just really, I think that one of the hard things that we're up against is just business incentives. Like, miners a lot of them are large publicly traded companies, or they have, shareholders that they have to kind of report to. And I think that at the end of the day, when they're just looking at the bottom line and like, they're trying to just make money, which we understand. But like at the same time, if this thing that you're mining that is producing all of your revenue becomes incredibly centralized, then it loses that big value, which, okay, so then what does that do to the price or the usage or any of those things, which would have, I think, a big negative effect on. So it's all up to the miners and the pools. I think that there's things that we can do as a community to either, not force them, but like, really encourage them in a particular way, but then also provide tools and services that help them kind of adopt Stratum v2 and those types of solutions.
That makes sense. Cool. And then last on the list, this was announced today, Coinbase rolled out Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's great to see they've been talking about it for a while. It's great to see that it finally happened. So this is, again, it's awesome to see I think that they have. I've seen anywhere between like 56 million to 100 million customers. Maybe that's like kind of different based on geographies, but millions of customers now have access to Lightning, which is great to see. I don't have a Coinbase account yet, so I haven't been able to use it. But really interested to see how it plays out here to hear the response from users. So this is great to see. Great to see continuing flourishing of Lightning inside of the Bitcoin ecosystem, especially as a lot of other people are talking about how dead Lightning is, which is just FUD. Great to see people like Coinbase, one of the largest exchanges in the world, start to support it. So yeah, this is great to see.
Yeah. Well, good deal. Well, yeah, if there's anything this next week, anyone watching, feel free to share. We'll be happy to cover it. We appreciate those who send topics through that we discuss. But any final words, Graham, just before we wrap up here for the Tuesday?
No, I mean, I think that this last week has been a crazy week. Hopefully this week that we are in right now is maybe less crazy. I'm okay with the craziness, but like let's like even it out across the week. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, if anyone has anything you want us to kind of cover or give input on, definitely let us know. But we'll be keeping an eye out, and yeah, excited to chat again next week.
All right. Well, have fun at the MicroStrategy conference. If you guys are there, say hey to Graham and Roman. Otherwise, we will see you all next week.